from the headquarters of Talasio English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. We begin with news from Venezuela, where President Maduro sat down for a special interview with Ignacio Ramírez just over a week before he's sworn in for another presidential term. Among various topics Maduro spoke on was the role and disintegration of the opposition in the country. He says he continues to welcome a dialogue with any representative of the country's opposition.
Another clear indication were the sad scenes they showed when they had to register their candidates for the presidential elections of May 20th. They complied with what was ordered of them from the international right-wing groups and from the North American imperialistic forces. This has unfortunately caused their demise, because Venezuela needs an opposition and a political opposition force. I have called for there to be dialogue over 400 times. I maintain this. Any actor from the opposition in their current situation who would like to speak to me has an open door, an open mind, and a willingness to speak about the future of the country. I think that sooner or later in Venezuela there will be political conversations which will be diverse and include all political and ideological forces of that opposition. I keep faith, and I will work so that there will be a fruitful political dialogue in Venezuela in 2019. This will hopefully allow to rebuild a political opposition that the country requires in order to have tranquility, peace, and a diverse democracy, which is what we yearn for.
And President Maduro also spoke on the effects of the economic blockade and what he called the persecution of many aspects of the economic life of Venezuelan citizens.
They're persecuting us in the purchases that we make in products worldwide. This includes food and medicine. It is a brutal persecution. What they are doing to Venezuela is frankly criminal. A financial blockade. Yes, I would say that it is more than a simple blockade, because sometimes a blockade is done simply to stop you from going somewhere. I put down an obstacle and you can't go further than that. But this is more than a blockade. It is a persecution. Persecution to our bank accounts, to the business that Venezuela carries out with the world. Persecution to commerce, to purchases. Euroclear withheld in 2018 for $1.4 billion, which we were going to use to buy medicine, consumables, to buy food, and nobody says anything at all. We have reported this to the UN, to the General Secretary of the UN. I have reported this to the different organisms. You reported this in UN speech, of course, and nobody says anything. So we have to fight to free ourselves, to release ourselves from the shackles of this persecution and this huge blockade.
And on Tuesday, Talasio spoke with Nicaragua's Foreign Minister, Denis Moncada. Moncada rejected the interventionist move by the OAS head, Luis Almagro, to promote the application of the Inter-American Democratic Charter on Nicaragua.
We have made an appeal to all Latin American and Caribbean governments for their support to ensure that Almagro's push is avoided, to put a stop to his bad intentions and a legitimate, illegal stance and interventionist stance. With his stance, Almagro is dragging Latin America governments towards a behavior which violates international rights and the OAS own charter. We need to reflect very seriously on Almagro's behavior, which is leading to a nihilistic stance and an anarchist approach of destruction of that forum, which is composed of the member countries of the organization.
In fact, Moncada says the Secretary General is supporting a coup in his country.
Almagro, rather than supporting a constitutional and legitimate government like ours, is doing on the contrary. He's doing the reverse. He's accompanying, cooperating with a coup, and those who are attempting a coup d'etat by breaking the order constitutional, by breaking the democratic order, precisely to change a government by the de facto way. By the unconstitutional way, that is what the coup plotters are doing, or at least what these groups attempted to do in Nicaragua, though they were neutralized.
In Brazil, among the decrees signed by the new president, Jair Bolsonaro, one would allow the government to supervise and coordinate NGOs and international organization activities. This measure will mean a restriction to work for many of them. This temporary decree will expire unless it is upheld by the Congress within 120 days. It is a part of a large number of unpopular measures taken by Bolsonaro on his first days or during his first days as president. And Brazil's new defense minister has been sworn in. The former military general, Fernando Azevedo e Silva, is one of 7 ministers with a military background within Bolsonaro's government. Azevedo e Silva was the high commander of the army and spent time in a military reserve in 2018. And the Workers' Party has condemned the first measures taken by the new Brazilian government. Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Ignacio Limas, has more.
Following the first 24 hours after Jair Bolsonaro came to power, the Workers' Party has released a statement condemning the first measures taken by his government. Among the points mentioned were the measures announced by the Minister of Economy, Paulo Guedes, on privatizations, and particularly the privatization of Eletrobras. This was a privatization which was not completed by the government of Michel Temer. Also, the reduction of social spending, where the first measure by the government of Bolsonaro was to increase the minimum wage by less than the amount earlier proposed for the minimum wage in 2019. This will be an increase to $260, which is $8 less than promised, an amount that may seem insignificant, but it's equivalent to a bag of beans or lentils or rice or corn for families with less financial resources, something that would have a large impact on the overall budgets of families. Other important points on measures taken by the Ministry of Economy include the restructuring of the pension system. Paulo Guedes, of course, studied in the United States. He's a Chicago boy who also lived in Chile. There's speculation that the restructuring of the pension system may take the shape of the Chilean retirement system. The Workers' Party also rejected the policies regarding indigenous peoples in Brazil. The government's done away with the vision regarding the demarcation of land by the National Foundation for Indigenous Peoples, and now the policies are led by the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock. This ministry is dominated by landowner interests, a sector which is an enemy of the indigenous peoples, a sector which has an interest in extractivist projects on the land of indigenous peoples. So this opens the way to a new period of genocide of indigenous peoples and an opening for mining projects throughout the Brazilian Amazon. This has also been denounced by the Workers' Party. In all, 17 policies were condemned. LGBT people have also been stripped of rights in a country where this section of the population suffers extremely high murder rates. The old Ministry of Human Rights, which has now been transformed into the Ministry of Women, Family and Human Rights, will no longer have within its remit the defense of LGBT people. It's been proposed by the Workers' Party, the Socialism and Liberty Party and the Communist Party Brazil that there must not be just opposition to proposals, but they must form an opposition which is critical actively of the government of Jair Bolsonaro as he wages social and economic attacks, and also as he wages attacks on opposition parties and on social movements.
We thank Ignacio for that report. Now, after meeting Bolsonaro in Brazil, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with the Colombian President Ivan Duque on Wednesday. They spoke about migration and organized crime. Pompeo promised financial aid on issues of immigration in Colombia. Duque thanked the U.S. for its help fighting the increase or the rise of cocaine production. Both met in the Colombian city of Cartagena to commemorate 200 years of diplomatic ties. But Venezuela has rejected what they call the anti-Venezuelan rhetoric during the meeting. It says the U.S. has at least 7 military bases in Colombia. Yet, despite the huge presence and millions of dollars in investment to combat the narco industry, reports show a rise in the production of illicit drugs. The government also says that both countries should concentrate on the fight against drug trafficking from Colombia and stay away from the sovereign affairs of Venezuela. We'll take a short break now. More news in a minute. Welcome back. The former Ecuadorian Vice President Maria Alejandra Vicuña will testify on Monday in her corruption case. Vicuña resigned December 4th after she was accused of bribery. She went back to her previous position as the country's tax institution, which she joined in 2007. She had requested unpaid leave for the past 9 years, to which the government said was illegal. Ecuador's National Assembly will debate the decriminalization of abortion. Lawmakers will analyze it in the cases of rape, incest, and fetus malinformation. The debate will also include the decriminalization of cannabis. They are part of a reform to the country's criminal laws. This follows the request of feminist groups in the country to fight against gender violence. Our correspondent in Ecuador, Denise Herrera, gives us more details.
We are outside the National Assembly in Quito, where the plenary session of the National Assembly will discuss the criminal code today. One of the main topics in the discussion is the decriminalization of the abortion. So we are outside with social organizations of women who are defending their rights. They are demanding a legal, a safe abortion today here in Ecuador. Also, other social organizations of citizens have gathered outside the National Assembly in rejection of this discussion. They say that women have to take care of their children. So we are in the middle of this discussion. We have to wait if the National Assembly will decide if the decriminalization of the abortion will be legal or not here in Ecuador today.
Activists in favor of the proposed legislation gathered outside the assembly.
I think it's an obvious right. In many countries, it is already legal, and for me, it's so logical. It's a foregone conclusion, and women are continuing to covertly have illegal and unsafe abortions. This is dangerous and even life-threatening. This should be our main focus. This is a very critical public health issue, and it's not only minorities who are affected, it's happening across the board. We cannot continue to bury our heads in the sand. We can no longer keep putting a band-aid on a festering wound. It is happening and we must do something about it.
We received this news with optimism and great expectation. We secured the first victory that led to the abortion law passed in the first report. And now we are much more prepared than we were back in 2013. So we can argue and present solid evidence about what women experience in this country. Now we need members of Congress to listen to us attentively. We need legislatures to understand the great responsibility that they have, as they are essentially holding women's lives in their hands. As the law currently stands in Ecuador, abortion is not allowed in the case of rape. So the Assembly has now an obligation to protect these women from those who violate them by ensuring that they are not re-victimized. We are also trying to make people understand that there is no justice in a rape survivor being sent to jail. Women need to be assured access to legal and safe abortions, because clearly jail is not the answer.
Meanwhile, some are also against the legalization of abortion.
We are against abortion because we do not view it as the ideal solution. We've proposed that shelters are set up for women who were raped, where their babies are also welcome. And also they have the alternative of giving the child up for adoption. But abortion can never be justified, no matter the circumstance. It's the murder of an innocent child, an innocent life as we see it. We instead demand that persons who rape girls or women feel the full brunt of the law. So just as we find it necessary to eliminate violence against women and girls, we must also protect unborn children from the violence of abortion.
Bolivia's Justice Minister has said that the facts are very clear in the case of an 18-year-old girl gang rape known as the Bolivian Wolfpack. Hector Arce said that in this alleged rape case, the facts support the victim's story, even after a forensic report was published in which it says that the victim was not raped by 5 men last December. He said justice must be impartial and should not benefit or harm either party in this case. And the 5 men arrested in Argentina for allegedly gang raping a 14-year-old girl have denied their crime. Those arrested are between the ages of 21 and 23. The attack took place in the coastal city of Miramar. According to the police report, the girl's parents found her drugged in a tent surrounded by the alleged perpetrators. The five appeared in court for the first time this Wednesday, accused of aggravated sexual abuse. They will remain detained until the end of the trial. Also in Argentina, workers' unions and truck drivers' union are preparing to take measures against the tarifazo announced by Mauricio Macri's government. 3 major trade unions are set to hold a press conference this Thursday to announce actions to be taken against the rate hikes to public services and transport. They plan to maintain a state of alert and are planning to mobilization against Macri's neoliberal policies. They also intend to raise a collective voice against layoffs and the financial measures by the IMF. 2 social leaders have been killed in Colombia, bringing the total number of social leaders killed under the presidency of Ivan Duque to 86. Musician and cultural director Gilberto Valencia was shot on Tuesday, the 1st for January, when he was with relatives and friends in the Cauca department. This is the first murder of a social leader in 2019. On the 9th of December 31st, the communal leader, Jesus Adair Parafa, was shot dead in the Cacedonia municipality. Well, news after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Electoral Commission has said it expects the results of Sunday's presidential election to be delayed. The Commission's president made the announcement at a meeting between the election observer team from the African Union and the candidates. He said this is due to the slow delivery of ballot boxes to tallying centers. So joining us for more on the situation in the Congo is Maurice Kani. He is the executive director of the Friends of the Congo, who joins us live from Washington, D.C. Maurice, thank you so much for joining us. The Electoral Commission said that it expects the results of Sunday's presidential election to be delayed. What exactly did they say was the reason, and what do you make of the delay?
Sure. As you shared, they used a logistical argument to explain the delay. In reality, they have between January 6th and 15th, according to their calendar, to make the report. So even if they don't have it on Sunday, they're still within the time frame that they've given to the public. But more importantly, the elections are contested. The ruling party coalition, led by Joseph Kabila, they are trying to make an argument for having won the elections, which is a very large stretch because the overwhelming majority of the Congolese population want change. So we suspect that the Electoral Commission is trying to find a way to come up with numbers that would support the ruling party as having won. I must add quickly, though, that today the National Episcopal Conference of the Congo reported that their results, they had observers in some 40,000 polling stations, and they claim that they have the final results of the elections based on their numbers. So we'll wait to see what the CENI, the Electoral Commission, actually says.
The Episcopal Commission, have they released their results as yet?
No, it's against the law to release the results, but they're just letting the international community and the world media know that they have reliable numbers based on their observers. So that's a way of holding to accountable, actually, the Electoral Commission, so that the fact that there are some solid numbers out there, the Electoral Commission will then be compelled, hopefully, to basically deliver the reality of how the Congolese people voted, as opposed to favoring the ruling party candidate.
Right. So, Maurice, the government has been accused of shutting down the internet. What have you heard about that, and why would the government do that?
It's not the first time. The government is trying to control information, trying to control the population, trying to control what is coming out of the Congo. They've shut down the internet a number of times, and that's a window into the repressive nature of the government, in that if information is circulating, coming out from the population that they're not in agreement with, and they figure it can be damaging to them, they don't hesitate to shut down the internet. And in fact, the Minister of Communication, Lambert Mende, said that the internet may be shut down well beyond the 6th. So that's a sign of how some of the repressive practices that the government institutes.
Now, and perhaps, actually, Maurice, what are the sentiments of the Congolese people? What do they want? What do you think? I think you mentioned it earlier, so I want you to kind of expand on that before. What do you think the results will be, or what have the Congolese people told you they want for their new government?
They want change. There's a profound desire on the part of the Congolese people for change. They want an end to the insecurity. They want an end to the extreme poverty. They want an end to the pillaging of their resources. The Kabila regime, which arrived in power with the backing of Western nations, has continued to provide unfettered access to Congo's riches to Western corporations. And the Congolese people are saying, we want to benefit from our wealth. We want clean water. We want electricity. We want health care. We want jobs. And this government is not providing that. They're working in cahoots with international finance capital to plunder the Congo at the expense of the Congolese people. And the people want change now.
Thank you, Maurice Carney of Friends of the Congo, for chatting with us live from Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
Conservative groups in India have paralyzed several states as they protest against the decision to allow women to enter a Hindu temple. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets in the state of Kerala with the support of conservative political parties. Stores were closed, bus services halted, and taxis refused to take passengers. This after 2 women successfully entered the Sabrimala temple on Wednesday. In September, the Supreme Court suspended the ban that prevented women of menstruating age from entering that Hindu temple.
In the Sabrimala temple issue, the government is responsible for giving protection to women. The government has fulfilled this constitutional responsibility. Sangh Parivar, a right-wing volunteer organization, is trying to turn Sabrimala into a clash zone.
We've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at tellusyourenglish.net. For viewers in Africa, we are on Star Channel 461 in South Africa and Channel 539 in Nigeria. Join us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Suni Gray. Thank you for watching.